Hey guys, Jonathan here, and LEGO sent me the new Imperial Dropship versus Rebel Scout Speeder set here early to review, and since I had it, I thought, you know what, why not go ahead and compare it to the originals that these sets are based off of. Now, the originals are the exact same names of the set, the Imperial Dropship and the Rebel Scout Speeder, but these were sold separately and retailed for $9.99 a piece in 2008. They technically came out at the end of 2007, but whatever. Anyways, back then you got 4 minifigs per set, and Rebel Troopers were actually quite rare back then, and had been up until recent times, so that's kind of interesting. Now you get more robust pieces for both builds. In fact, both builds come in the same set now instead of having to buy them individually, but you only get 3 minifigures per faction versus 4 in the original. So right off the bat, I do think that the original provided better value considering you got 4 minifigures and you only had to spend $10 a piece to get those, versus the new one. Crazy enough, LEGO actually has not sent out the price sheet as of this recording of the video, so I don't actually know how much it's going to cost. I'm guessing somewhere in the $40 range, plus or minus a little bit. But, you know, basically double the price, but when you equate for inflation, it's like, it's so hard to tell. But getting more minifigures is always going to come out on top for me, so I like that quite a bit. So let's go ahead and compare each model side by side and see how they've changed over the years. All right, we'll start off with the Imperial Dropships. Now, the original one only had 81 pieces. Oh no, we lost a trooper already. And you can see that we've got some stickers here on the front with the Imperial logo, which looks quite cool. If we lift up the front, you can see that there's room for one pilot, in this case, the exclusive Shadow Trooper figure, which I think is really cool, and the detail is really held up over the years. In fact, I used to use this torso on like my custom Sig fig in my Star Wars adventures back in the day because I always thought it was so cool. So we get that figure that can go in the cockpit right there, and you just kind of sit him as you see and then close that up. Then there's plenty of seating for 4 troopers in the back, and basically the dropship can land into battle, and then you lift this up and then slide this out, and then the dropship can leave the troopers. And then, speaking of the troopers, we do get 3 regular stormtroopers here. As you can see, because of the time era, it is that more classic stormtrooper look. I used to love this era of stormtroopers. I think that they looked really great, and I think that they've aged pretty well too. So there we go with our stormtroopers. Then that brings us to the newer model, which I do like, but I don't like it anywhere near as much as the original. In a weird way, I think that this actually has become, like, overcomplicated. It feels, like, too bulky, whereas the other one was the perfect blend of, like, old-school Lego, where there's not too much bulk, it feels, like, kind of imaginative, and here, it just feels like there's pieces added for the sake of adding them, and all of these random brown parts really pull away. Like, if you look at the original, I really like how there's a consistent color scheme throughout the whole thing, with only a few light gray bricks, mostly dark gray, black, and blue. And here, those brown colors just really stick out anywhere that they appear. Anyway, similar to the original, you can see that there's room to put one stormtrooper up front. His feet just kind of click in there. Then there's the controls. His arms have to be all the way up, though, for the cockpit to close. And then, of course, you could lift it up. And I guess in this case, it's her arms, because we do have several different variations of the stormtroopers here. It is nice they have leg printing and everything like that, so that's not such a bad thing. But when we close the cockpit here, you can see we've got stud shooters on the sides, some Imperial stickers, kind of like the original. Then we have 2 more stormtroopers on the back that can be let off into battle, but this time you actually just pull it out of the socket here. So this little clip piece goes into that clip piece inside, and it fits a little something like that. So here the dropship goes into battle, you pull this out and it flies off, and you've got your 2 troopers there. Now that being said, on the original, they all just had black heads, and in this faction, we actually have different heads for them that kind of differentiate the figures. Of course, that being said too, they have the more detailed helmet styling here, the leg printing that I mentioned, and of course there's clips on the sides to hold their weapons while you're in flight mode. So it's not to say that this is a bad model, don't get me wrong, but I'm just a big fan of the simplicity of the old one by comparison. And now that brings us to the Rebel Scout Speeders. Interestingly, they're actually pretty dang close in comparison as far as like the width and everything, But, of course, they are very different in terms of parts usages. The original only had 82 pieces, and I think that they did a lot with a little. Both, as you could see, have those flat discs underneath that kind of allow them to, like, float and glide over the surface area, which I think is pretty cool. Then, of course, we've just got some incredible stickers on the new one, particularly on the slopes on the side and the hood, whereas on the original, we just had some random, like, Rebel insignia stickers here and there. We did have clips for all the guns on the side, which when I was a kid and played with this set, I always like made it that the driver could like use these as their own turrets. I used my imagination for that, of course. But, you know, they were just supposed to be clips for the guns so you could have somewhere to hold them. You could have all your troopers sit down if you wanted, but I always made mine stand just so that they'd be, like, ready for battle. But yeah, there is space to do that. As you can see, we've got, like, a wheel on the back that's, like, the engine turbine, and you can lift the turret out here so it could stand on its own. So these guys could go into battle while you have a long-range turret in the back that, of course, spins up top. So I really like this. I think they did a lot with just those 82 pieces, and consider that, like, what, 5 or 6 pieces each go to the troopers. So that's kind of fascinating that they did it with even less than 82 pieces, technically. Okay, onto the build here. A lot of similarities as far as like the overall size and shaping, but we do get a lot more detail and contouring here that just looks so much better and really updates it for the modern age. Of course, like I said, you can remove this turret here as well and kind of have it sit off on its own and it spins. This time, of course, though, we get stud shooters there as well as a posable cannon that can move up or down if needed. And then, of course, I'll go ahead and take the minifigures out so we can do a minifigure comparison in a moment. But there are actual designated seats here where your characters are supposed to sit down. There's a computer up front, and then, of course, there's a computer in the turret as well, whereas on the original, it was just this random lever. So all of the minifigures in the original Scout Speeder are identical. They looked exactly the same. As you can see here, pretty basic with those light bluish gray legs. Then, of course, the torso print with not a ton of detail and that head that has the strap on it. And then, of course, we've got the helmet. Now, as we've gone over time, I do believe that the helmet is the same piece, if not just slightly updated and modified over the years, but it does look incredibly similar when it's all said and done. But, of course, with the minifigs, we have pocket detailing on the fronts of the torso now, as well as printing on the back, which the original never had. And then, of course, we do get different heads for all of these. So this head here, you can see, has an alternate expression on the back side. The same is true for this figure here. Pretty similar, but these are both reuses from previous Rebel troopers and, you know, characters. And then, of course, we have a new one here, a female trooper, which has the chin strap, and we could flip it around for, like, an angry fighting face. So it's hard not to say that the variation of the new minifigures aren't better, but it's just so hard to say. Obviously, the new one is the superior model in terms of detail and the minifigures, but there is a certain simplistic charm that goes into the first one that I really just can't deny and get over. But when it came to the Imperial Dropships, it was so much more obvious to me that I like the old one versus the new one, and here I really do kind of like both for different reasons, so it is hard for me to pick a favorite, and I'd love to hear what you guys think down in the comments. Of course, I'd also be remiss not to mention that the new dropship comes with QTKT for the Star Wars 25th anniversary, and of course, it is a really cool pink astromech droid, which references the Clone Wars, but even that droid was a reference to the actual real pink astromech droid that the 501st Legion uses to honor Katie Johnson, who's the daughter of the founder of the 501st Legion, who sadly passed away from brain cancer years ago. So it's very cool that LEGO has honored the legacy of this pink astromech and included it in the set here. It doesn't directly tie to the comparison, but it is very cool to talk about and should definitely be included. Alright guys, let me know if you like the older ones better than the new ones. Needless to say, I definitely lean toward the older ones, mostly for nostalgia, but also I think getting each of those for $10 a piece is just such a good value, it's hard to not go with those. But I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments. Be sure to hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next video.